From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Meteorologist Mike Krueger. Let's take a look at your weather headlines, and you can see we got a bigger summer heat arriving today. This is something I've been talking about, with parts of the valley quite possibly reaching 110 degrees as early as tomorrow into Saturday. And it looks like this is going to be one of the longest stretches of triple-digit heat that we've seen so far for the season. But the good news is there will be some relief from the heat as we get towards the middle and latter part of next week. More on all of that in our deeper dive forecast. Here is your Krueger's Quickcast for your Thursday, July 10th. For those of you that just want a quick look at the forecast, let's get you started with out the door. And this morning we're talking about temperatures of around 80. It'll be a bit smoky and hazy for Trinity County, not to mention out to many parts of the valley, and a bit hazy out towards Modoc County as well. We take a look at the satellite image, and high pressure is that dominant feature, the clouds moving up and over that ridge. And that's what's going to be heating us up here. Let's take a look at Futurecast here. This is what's known as the HRRR forecast model. And really the main thing we want to point out is that that fog along the coast is going to dissipate later this afternoon. More sunshine for the second half of the day, but then more clouds coming in later on tonight. Here's what we expect here for today. Temperatures well over 100 degrees for everyone in the valley. Mainly 90s for the higher elevations. Some of the cooler spots will be in the 80s and looks like low 60s for you along the coast. And we're going to call it partly cloudy. That's because it's starting off with mostly cloudy skies, but those clouds should dissipate by the second half of the day. Now, overall, temperatures are going to really peak Friday through the weekend into early next week before we do see that dip in our temperatures by the middle of next week. For the coast, no big increases, no big drops, just generally in the mid-60s, no big surprises there. Temperatures are very hot even in the mountains and the inland areas as well. We can take a look at the 7-day forecast for Siskiyou, Modoc County, Eastern Mountains. I mean, you're going to be around 100 degrees, if not higher, through at least Monday, even into Tuesday, before temperatures do start to drop a little bit as we go into the middle and latter part of next week. All right, that is your Krueger's Quickcast. Quick reminder, there is a free Weather NorCal app that you have access to, and I want you to go ahead and check it out. All you have to do is search for Weather NorCal in your app store, and you are good to go. Here's my advice. If you don't like it, take it off your phone. But it's local, folks, and that's what it's all about. A lot of free apps out there, but they are not generated, the forecast, by a local meteorologist like Weather NorCal. So be sure to check that out. Weather NorCal in your app store. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our fire forecast. We have a fire forecast that we do, just basically looking at the weather, what's the latest fires going on. And as you know, one of the main things that I like to do when we are looking at the fire forecast here is in the mornings, I like to do in this update, the morning update, and on Coffee with Krueger, a bit of a detailed look at what's going on with the latest on the fires. One thing you have to remember is that the fires are ever changing. And that's why it's important for you to go to weathernorcal.com, click on that fire section, and you're good to go. And you can check out the latest, what's going on here. But a lot of yellow on the map here. What you're seeing here is, as we zoom it in here, we'll get a little bit more detail and you'll be able to see a little bit better. Now, this is the bridge fire, which, by the way, for some reason, my software doesn't want to bring in that that fire perimeter also to the west side of the river here. But the yellow here indicating 3 to even 4 days old is what we're looking at here. So no recent activity, still about 60% containment when we're looking at the bridge fire out there in southern Humboldt County. Meanwhile, we take you out to the green fire, one of our bigger fires as of yesterday or as of this morning, excuse me, at 2:39 this morning, 4,396 acres, still looking at 0% containment. Now, most of where we're seeing the activity, see these red dots? That's indicating anywhere from 12 to even 24 hours old, with the orange dots as well. So that's where some of the most recent activity has been on the south side of the fire, although we are seeing some red up here as well. By the way, that's the fire perimeter underneath all of those dots here. So that's the latest look at green fire. Now we're going to take you out to the horse fire, where we do have, as of yesterday evening at 5:24, 385 acres. Look at that, good news. The horse fire is now 100% contained. We don't even have to report on it anymore after today. There's a look at the Helena fire, 90% containment. There's a very good chance that we've been seeing it kind of uptick about 10% each day. So if we're lucky, we will see that number go up to about 100% containment here sometime later on today. All right, let's take you a lot of activity going on here. Yellow indicating again older activity here for the north side of the fire, but the south side looks like a little fire or a smaller fire developed to the south of the Butler fire right here. A lot of these orange dots here indicating activity that's about 24 hours old or so. So still fairly recent here, and it looks like it's made its way down on the west side of that slope here. So we may see eventually that fire perimeter kind of extend westward here in this area, but there's still the evacuation orders and the warnings associated with that. The jacket fire is 46 acres, 51% containment. As of yesterday afternoon, 1:37 p.m. So some of that older data as we go into the morning. Keep in mind this data kind of gets updated throughout the day. The red fire as of yesterday, 1:44 p.m., 113 acres, still 0% containment, but no recent activity as indicated by those yellow dots, at least 3 to 4 days old. Also, no recent activity coming in from the Summit fire either, mainly looking at yellow dots here. 2:33 p.m. On the 9th, which was yesterday, reported at 529 acres and 13% containment. There's the evacuation orders and warnings. All right, so that's the latest look at the fires. What's going on with the smoke? These fires are producing smoke, and we're seeing a shift, and we did see a shift last night and early this morning. Seeing that smoke working its way down into the valley, Trinity County, and there you can see out towards southwestern portions of Siskiyou County, you can see some of that smoke as well. There's the Butler fire. See how it's really producing a lot of smoke there as we go through this morning. Now you can see here, we see a little bit of improvement here for the valley. This is mainly just going to be some of that haze and smoke that you will see here throughout the day today. That's midday today. Let's take you into the afternoon. Those winds, once again, as the fire begins to flare up and begins to breathe throughout the day, we're going to see it produce more smoke. There's the dense smoke working its way into northern Trinity County by 6 o'clock this evening. Yellow's indicating more of that a thicker haze working into looking at more like smoke as we start getting the oranges and reds. In fact, by tonight, we are seeing some more of that dense smoke working its way into parts of the valley here, and unfortunately that's going to really decrease that air quality. And then really, this looks a lot like this morning for tomorrow morning, so we'll probably still be looking at some of that haze and smoke out there as the fire begins to kind of settle down a little bit in the overnight hours and then starts to breathe again going through the afternoon. In fact, there's Friday around midday. Still seeing some of that haze out there. Doesn't look to be quite as bad. You can see the winds maybe not transporting that smoke as much as we're seeing here for today. All right, let's go and take a look at this. This is, of course, what I mentioned. As you know, conditions change rapidly when it comes to the fires. So I give that very detailed look at the fires, and not to mention the forecast, typically in the morning hours, okay? In the afternoon and evening, I tend to, unless there's something major happening, I tend to not really cover the fires a whole lot. Again, that's because conditions change. So you can watch these forecasts, and by the time you watch them, most likely conditions may have changed. So go to the weathernorcal.com, click on the fire danger section, and you'll get the latest on all of those fires. All right, let's go into the forecast and what's going to be impacting those fires and any new fires that should start. So breezy this morning, they subside by the afternoon, but then later this afternoon and evening, those winds may begin to pick up. But as you can see here, no major wind events. That's the key here. Still a bit breezy for your Friday morning, gusty at times here for the valley. And then as we go into Friday midday afternoon, those winds should subside, although it looks like a little gusty out towards central Siskiyou County and even a little breezy out there along the coast as well. Here's a look at your Saturday, and you can see those winds still a little breezy, especially on the west side of the valley. But overall, the key that we can take out of this, no major wind events, but as those winds do pick up, we are seeing the fire weather risk increase, unfortunately, and that's in the moderate to high range here, not only for today, but it looks like that'll be the case here going into Friday as well. In fact, Friday morning still seeing that high fire danger because of those gusty winds at times, and then taking you into your Saturday, at least through midday, we're already starting to see by midday that high fire weather risk. So just bear that in mind over the next several days, especially in the valley. We do have that high fire weather risk, and that is going to allow those fires to spread more rapidly when they start. So let's be really careful. I don't want to hear about any new fires, by the way, in the valley, folks. I just don't. I don't want to hear about any new fires anywhere. let's be smart and not do anything stupid and start a fire. Let's just do that. Let's help each other out. All right, heat alerts. All of these had different times on when they start and when they end. Quite honestly, I just think for you as an average person, you're all more than average. You're all above average. You all watch Weather NorCal. So for those of you that are all above average, still, you look at these, you go extreme heat watch, extreme heat warning, what does all of this mean? Essentially, it just means it's going to be hot. Now, the thing is, the times change. Some of them start a little earlier, some of them last a little bit longer. So rather than confuse you with all of that, let's just talk about the heat and how hot it's going to be. So one of the questions that was asked of me yesterday when I posted when these first came out is, what is the criteria for an excessive heat warning or whatever, right? So, in fact, it's changed. I needed to change this too. To make matters even worse as far as confusion is concerned, they changed the wording from excessive to extreme. And to me, that just seems excessive because we don't need to over-dramatize what's going on with the weather. So extreme to me seems to be more of an extreme word than excessive. I'm using the words to help explain each other, but you get the idea, right? But I digress. Let's talk about what's going on here. Heat advisory issued within 12 hours and when the high will be 100 degrees plus for at least 2 days. Now the thing is, when we look at this criteria, you need to bump that temperature up a little bit more, because how many times do we see 100 degrees or plus for more than 2 days? If that were the case, we'd be at our heat advisory almost all summer long. So we have to kind of take that with a grain of salt, what the criteria is. I think the criteria is a little bit higher for us, because you can see the extreme heat watch, 24 to 72 hours when the risk of heat wave increases, but timing is still a little uncertain. Extreme heat warning is issued within 12 hours and when the high will be 105 plus for at least 2 days. And again, we'd be under an extreme heat warning several times during the year, especially when we see 105 plus. And then when the nighttime temperatures won't drop below 75 degrees. That could happen to us sometimes. But one of the things that's nice for us typically is that we see the heat during the day, and at night we typically drop down to the mid to upper 60s, sometimes in the low 70s, but that's a little uncommon, and I don't anticipate for us to see our lows only drop down into the mid to even upper 70s. So again, we look at this, just keep in mind that our criteria is going to be bumped up a little bit higher than what we're seeing here. Just kind of a little thing to think about, just that grain of salt when we're looking at that, right? I wanted to show you the water vapor because this really helps to illustrate what's going on. You see, this is very dry air, but you see the flow. This is an area of high pressure. That's the Four Corners High, which is actually working its way now down to the south and west over into Southern California. This is where the main heat is, at least for one area of heat, and that's going to be over Southern California. You want to talk about some heat. Boy, I tell you what, they're getting some heat down there in Southern California. Meanwhile, we do have another ridge of high pressure right here. You see a bit of a spin in the atmosphere. So what's happening is these two, heat here, heat over here, they're joining forces, they're building it in Northern California, and that's why, starting as early as today, we're really going to start to see those temperatures increase over the next several days. And again, that's including today. So again, there's that main bubble of heat to the south, the other one off to our north and west. You see how they're kind of joining forces a little bit here. Broad ridge of high pressure right here. So you got the main kind of broad ridging, so all of the clouds and rain and all that moving up and over that ridge of high pressure, right? But meanwhile, we've got two kind of pockets of heat that are going to be impacting our weather as we go through the weekend and into next week. Now, what's going to happen, you can see the main ridge kind of popping up here. What's going to happen is some energy is going to break down from the north. It's cooler air, so I'm just going to call it warm instead of hot. What that will do is help our temperatures to drop. It's still going to be hot. We're still going to be upper 90s, over 100 degrees in the valley. Thursday, Friday of next week, even Wednesday. But what you'll notice here is that bubble of heat here being shunned off to the west, and this one back where it typically is, and that's going to be over the desert southwest. And as a result, our temperatures drop slightly. But again, I want to use the word slightly because you can see we're going up to about 110 degrees, which, by the way, if we get up to 110 degrees tomorrow, you're talking for the first time this year so far, so that'll be interesting. And then, of course, temperatures, you see how they're just ticking downward? That's that warm air pushing the heat, the bigger heat, out of our area. So as we get towards the end of next week, yeah, even Redding could drop down just below 100 degrees. So we'll certainly take that. Absolutely. Now, the question is, and I was talking about the first time we hit 110 degrees for the year, when is the earliest we've ever hit 100 degrees, at least in Redding? Well, that was June 5th, 1926, with a high of 111 degrees. So kind of interesting. We're nowhere near that record, right? So that's good. We don't want to really break that record. Take a look at Futurecast here real quickly. Just want to show you that, yeah, we're going to see that fog dissipate here later this afternoon for the coast. There may be some afternoon cumulus clouds developing for some of the higher elevations, in particular for tomorrow afternoon. There you can see there's some of the clouds developing here. It even wants to pick up on a little bit of shower activity, but I think it's just going to be too dry for any of that to really develop. In the meantime, maybe a little bit of a patchy fog for parts of Eureka tomorrow afternoon. And then Saturday, it clears out as well. So we've got some beautiful sunny skies here for you along the coast here over the next couple of days. Take a look at your lake levels. There you can see they are dropping slightly. 81% capacity Shasta Lake. That's still very healthy, and we're still over 100% here when we're talking about that overall historical average. One of the things you'll notice here, if you do need to be on a small boat, pay close attention, because these wave heights are going to be increasing throughout the day today, including increasing even higher for your Friday. Now, as a result, the National Weather Service has issued a small craft advisory that will go into effect this afternoon. In the meantime, you can see the winds will be picking up eventually at about 15 to 20 knots. Your waves eventually from the northwest at 5 feet at 6 seconds and from the northwest at 2 feet at 8 seconds. And once again, there's that small craft advisory. Here is your Trinity County neighborhood forecast. Your temperatures mainly in the upper 90s. Douglas City, you could top out at about 100. 72 degrees out towards Blue Lake, 90 degrees in Alder Point. 90 for Garberville and Shelter Cove, about 70 degrees. 95 out in Orleans, 96 in Hoopa, 98 degrees for Willow Creek. Now, where I think we're going to see most of the smoke will be in the eastern side of basically Del Norte and Humboldt counties, but the coast should be looking at sunny skies, probably not even seeing any smoke or haze. Siskiyou County, most of your smoke will be in western Siskiyou County, maybe some patchy haze off towards central and eastern Siskiyou County, and some haze and a little bit of smoke at times even for Modoc County, but shouldn't be too bad. Temperatures in the upper 80s here for today. Eastern Mountains a little hazy, although places like Bernie, as you're closer to the Green Fire, you may see some more of that smoke here later today, as well as Shingletown, Viola Mineral, and maybe even Fall River Mills. But as you start heading a little bit more to the east, the smoke and haze shouldn't be as bad. Hazy, smoky for the valley for a good portion of the day today, especially this morning. Should improve here by the afternoon. Temperatures over 100 degrees pretty much anywhere you go in the valley today. You're going to be over that here through next Tuesday, but looks like Chico should drop back below 100 degrees by Wednesday. 101 for Whiskeytown. I mean, even up towards Lakehead, you're looking at a high of 100. 105 for the city of Shasta Lake and Redding, about 106 degrees. And there you can see 107 in Palisadro, 104 in Red Bluff. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast for Redding. 110 possibly as early as tomorrow, maybe even on Saturday, but temperatures slowly dropping, still at least 100 degrees by Wednesday of next week. That's your morning update. Have yourselves a great morning. We'll see you at noon.
Fire spreads quickly. Don't wait until it's too late. Garmin's Tractor Service specializes in field mowing and light tractor work to help protect your family, your property, and those around you. We're fully insured, locally licensed, and ready to help you create the defensible space you need. Call or text Garmin's Tractor Service today. Protect what matters before fire strikes you.